But the next one is the law of non-contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
So in logical notation, this would be, it is not the case that P and not P.
Mm-hmm.
So, or it cannot be the case that P and not P.
Mm-hmm.
Something cannot be and not be simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
Those two propositions, P and not P, cannot both be true, because that would be a contradiction.
And we just talked about that. So this is kind of reinforcing identity in a way.
And yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's identity is a thing is not some other thing, and non-contradiction is a thing can't also be not a thing. It's not so relevant to identity as what it is, but it's more whatever it is, it can't also be not that thing.
Right.
It does build on identity.
If thing is thing is not thing. Did you get it?
I didn't get that one.
If P equals P, P doesn't also not equal P.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so-
Yeah. So it cannot be the case that P and not P. So contradictory propositions cannot both be true. You cannot have both P and not P. So Aristotle treated this law as the most certain principle in all of reasoning. This is the most important law. So, because reason being is it is impossible to deny this law without using the law. Right? So if you were to say something like the law of non-contradiction is false, you're already assuming the truth of it by making a truth claim. If you say the law of non-contradiction is false, then if it truly is false, then your statement of it being false could also be true at the same time. You get that?
No.
So
hit me again.
if the law of non-contradiction, I'm making a statement. The law of non-contradiction is false.
Interesting.
But if I declare that the law of non-contradiction is false, then the contradictory statement, the law of non-contradiction is true, is also true. Simultaneously with it being false.
Okay.
Because two contradictory statements can both be true if the law is false. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So
On account of because contradictions would then exist.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Aristotle later refined this to say that it cannot be the case that P and not P at the same time in the same respect. Because if you were to say, like, there's two people at two parts of the world phoning in to each other, one were to say that it's raining, and one were to say it's not raining, those are contradictory statements, but they can both be true.
That's true. Yeah.
So Aristotle was like, let's refine this at the same time, in the same respect. So, due to their differing locations in the world, they're not in the same respect. So,
Right.
it's still, the law stands. But there's a paradox with this law. There's a problem with this law already, just within semantics. So it's called the liar paradox. If I say this statement is false, how do you break that down for me? This statement is false.
Well, I would be confused because you're not really making a claim.
I am making a claim.
You're making a claim of a statement's validity, but you're not. You can't really check the validity of it. You see what I'm getting at? You can't check the validity of this statement as false. You can't. It's not verifiable. It just kind of is.
Right, sure. But if we take it at face value, it's not a syllogism that we can accept or deny its premises. But if we take it at face value, if I say this statement is false, and we assume, okay, let's say we have P equals this statement is false.
Okay.
So P can be true or false.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say this statement is false, and we say P equals true, then the statement itself would be false. But if the statement is false, then P is false. P is not true. But if P is not true, and I say this statement is false, then it's true.
So I see what you're getting at. So
P equals true.
If the statement is true, then it is false.
And if it's false, then it's true.
Well,
simultaneously, the statement contains simultaneity.
That's just
contradiction.
That's just a word game, though.
Exactly. But the problem is, it defies the law of non-contradiction. The statement is simultaneously true and false at the same time.
I mean, could you just say that that doesn't happen in reality? That can't. This is
from Aristotle's point of view, yes. And I'm gonna tear that down too.
Okay. Have fun.
Normally, colloquially speaking, yeah, the law of non-contradiction can't happen in reality. Sure.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you why reality doesn't care about the law of non-contradiction in a moment here.
Sure.
So that's a bit of a paradox, but we're just playing word games, right?
Yeah.
The law is still the law is unfazed pretty much. So, but it's also sort of bringing under attention with things like metaphors and poetry and stuff. So they have contradictions yet still make sense. So if we take the phrase, the silence was deafening, that's a contradiction, but it makes sense. When you say that to somebody, they know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So what that would imply is that human meaning making and like human reasoning might operate a little beyond rigid mathematical logic. Because if we thought in a mathematical way, the phrase "the silence was deafening" would not be coherent. But people know what that means.
Yeah.
So clearly our brains are doing some sort of computation that is higher than mathematics and logic and reasoning.
We're using other experiences and other data points to make comparisons.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it is a contradiction. It's just because we're not contradicting ourselves, because we're implying something else. We're not implying that the silence is actually deafening. We're implying that it is impactful or something, or uncomfortable.
Yeah. When something's deafening, it doesn't always have to mean auditorially.
Yeah. And even if it is, we are using that as a vehicle to mean something else.
Yeah. So we can sort of, even if our minds are just extremely complex logical computational machines, we can still sort of like context clue piece together a contradiction in a way that means something, even though the phrase itself doesn't make sense in logical notation.
Yeah.
So,
but and the other way you can put that is if you were to try to hyperanalyze that phrase in a logical context, you would simply be taking the phrase out of context. You wouldn't be taking the context of culture or language or the human mind.
Right. So, and that would be that's like poetry. A lot of poetry is "the silence is deafening" that's a poetic sort of turn of phrase. Yeah. A lot of poetry thrives on contradictions like that.
Yeah.
And we just, we know what it means. So we are not, presumably, at base level, or not at base level, at more higher order, purely mathematical beings. Mm-hmm. But, so in question to your does law of non-contradiction hold in reality? No. Quantum mechanics bugs this up.
Yeah.
So, particle duality. So, particles have what's called wave-particle duality. If you take an electron or like a photon or something, or even a whole atom, you can take a whole atom and do this with a proton, neutron, and electron. These particles will act like a wave until it's measured, causing the wave function to collapse, and then it starts acting like a particle.
Right.
So this was you saw a video on this quite a while ago in the double slit experiment, where a single unmeasured electron was shot at a wall with two slits, and it went through the two slits and reacted like it was a wave, as if water was falling through the two slits, right?
Yeah.
But when the electron was going through those two slits, it was just one electron. It was acting like a wave and interfering with itself. There's no other electrons for it to hit and bounce off of and act like a wave. But it interfered with itself. And the only way that would be possible is if the single electron went through both slits and interacted with itself. But because it was unmeasured, we know that superpositions are all possible positions. So it did. The single electron, you might think it could only go through one slit. No, it went through both slits at the same time and went through all possibilities until it was measured. The wave function collapses, and then it acts like a particle that does only one thing at one time. So if we were to say P is a particle and A is a wave, or trying to think of an example here that makes sense in logical notation. So let's take the particle. It can be a particle or a wave. When we apply the law of non-contradiction to it, being a particle is purely opposite to being a wave. There is no both.
Right.
That is a contradiction. But before you measure it and the wave function collapses, it's all. The law of non-contradiction gets thrown out the window because it's a particle acts like a wave measured, and then it acts like a particle. It is both. It is a contradictory thing in itself. So the law of non-contradiction, once you get to the subatomic level, the fundamental physics don't care about your laws of logic.
Facts don't care about your feelings.
Facts don't care about your feelings, in the famous words of Ben Shapiro. Right. So the law of identity falls apart when we look at physics. The law of non-contradiction falls apart when we look at physics.
Yeah.
But both of these are pretty much inescapable at the level of human thought.